What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Joshi's Ramblings. Today, we're going to be talking about the June Dataslate, which I know people have been talking about quite a bit already. It did come out about 9 hours ago, I think, but I am an American that lives on the West Coast, which means that I was asleep when it came out. That's actually a total lie. I was awake, and then I looked at it, and then went to sleep and decided to talk about it later. But anyway, if you want to know what I think about all the new stuff, this is that video. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, we got to talk about the big one first. Lord Solar did get a change in the balanced data slate where he can now order Titanic units. And yes, I did check immediately. This doesn't mean that you can order Allied Knights. I did check. They have to have the Astra Militarum keyword. They can be ordered. They just don't get the effect of the order because they're not Astra Militarum. But Robert Moreland did come into the Discord and instantly said, I fainted when I heard the news. It's definitely Baneblade time. So is this competitive? Maybe. It's one of those things that you definitely need to take another look at it now. I know there are some people looking at taking like Stormlords, the ones that you can hop out and hop back in, and using that in Mechanized Assault, now that it can be ordered. You can use things like Scions or Ogryn hopping in and out of the transport in order to just have a ton of power across the board. Of course, the Storm Sword has always been the classic Baneblade chassis that has been good for a lot of 10th edition, and then was bad when the Lord Solar change happened. So this is one of the things to kind of keep an eye out. There are some funny builds that you can go for in Siege Regiment as well now, where if you have like two super heavies and you just make them stealth, some armies just can't deal with that. So that's one of the interesting things that you do have access to. But it is there. It is interesting, but I would recommend that most players still stay away from the super heavies if you are playing to compete. I think you have to be pretty good to actually make the Baneblade work well, unless you're just willing to coin flip games on whether or not your 500 points of your army lives or dies. Cool. Other one, this one was pretty funny. The Militarum Tempestus Command Squad, they added Voice of Command. Thanks for the FAQ. I wanted to say Riot Games, but this is Games Workshop. Okay, now, let's go ahead and start talking about the actual buffs that we got, some of the changes we had in the MFM. First one, the Bulgren squad went down. So this unit was very, very strong in the index until they lost their ability to be ordered when they went up to 220 points. And people were lamenting, it's like 220 is ridiculous. They either need the ability to get their orders back or they need to go down in points. And at 6 models for 200, they are interesting. Are they going to be auto takes in every list? No. Should you be looking at them once again as a potential thing to put in your list, especially if you have a lot of damage to melee in your meta? Yes, they are interesting. The 3-mans are probably outcompeted still, but the 6-mans are worth another look. If they were to go down again to 190 or 180, then they rapidly start approaching. You should start putting them on the list. For now, though, I think it's going to depend a lot on the meta that you're currently playing in and whether or not the 6-inch move is going to be enough for these kind of units. Other buff that we got was Death Riders. Now, this is a unit that desperately needed this buff. It was just strictly outcompeted by Rough Riders for, I mean, as long as the Death Riders have kind of existed. They were okay back in the index when you had the leader where you could infiltrate with them. But now they move only 10 inches and they do less damage than Rough Riders. So the fact that they are now on par in points makes them interesting. This is another unit that I think is going to be difficult for most players to make good usage out of. It's something that I think, if you're not already playing Rough Riders in your lists, it's going to be hard to make good usage of this unit because it requires a lot of move blocking. It requires a lot of understanding of limiting your opponent's movement phase because they still don't do a lot of damage. But for people like John Winter Russell, I know he's already been looking at them, and whether or not this is enough to push them over the edge and help them to outcompete Rough Riders, still up in the air. The last one, Tempestus Aquilons, went down 10 points, and they are now 100. This is a unit that you should really be looking at. This is a unit that was already starting to see a little bit of sporadic play in competitive lists, in the lists that are going X1 or better at GT play. Aquilons were good, or were like playable at 110. They are now good at 100. So the fact that they are once again on the menu is very neat, especially in combined arms, where you have the ability to drop in your opponent's backfield and force your opponent to deal with it. Then you could reinforcements and do it again. This is a unit that you should be looking at, probably including one, especially in combined arms. Maybe not in other detachments, but it's definitely a unit where you will start to see this quite a bit more now it's been buffed. Okay, let's talk about the nerfs. So these nerfs are very targeted at one specific list, and I can point to the people who were playing it, and I'm not gonna lie, this looks very biased. However, let's go ahead and talk about it. The Death Corps of Kree, the 10-man units did not change. However, the 20 model units went up 15 points, which is a lot. These were very, very common in lists that Nassim Fouchain and Gustavo de Sousa were playing, especially in the UKTC. They were starting to pop up in a lot of teams lists. We saw Nassim and Benjurik also play it. I was taking it. We saw other players just bringing 120-man of Death Corps of Krieg basically to a lot of combined arms list. It was very common there. Going up 15 points is a pretty big nerf overall. The fact that you brought them because they were efficient trading pieces, or rather like efficient screens, and your opponent had to put more than 130 points into them. Now the fact that they went up 15 points it's a lot. A lot of things in the 150 to 200 range are actually like reasonably efficiently dealing with them now. So this actually hurts their role quite a bit. Other one, Luminar's Battle Tank. This one went up 10. I was expecting an increase by 5, probably, but an increase by 10 hurts a lot. We'll talk more about the ramifications of this later, but this was part of the standard tank package that you would see in basically every combined arms list that was being run, where you would run a Rogel Dorn commander, 2 Luminar's Battle Tanks, a Luminar's Exterminator, and a Hellhound. And this increases that package by 20 points, which is not nothing, especially when combined with the other changes. The Taurox went up 10 per Taurox to 75, which is a lot. It probably, like, honestly, this one is probably deserved. I think I still would have put it at 70, but the fact that it went at 10, a lot of people were running multiple Tauroxes in their combined arms list. A lot of people were running them in Hammer. It was being run in Mechanized Assault. Almost every style of list was running at least 1 or 2 of these, so the fact that it went up is not a big surprise. Ursula Creed, though, this one went up 20 points. This is a lot. Once again, 20 points for Ursula Creed is at the spot where you don't have to take her anymore. She was pretty close to auto-include for most of the Codex and a lot of like the Bridgehead times, especially with like the Lord Solar nerfs. 20 points is a big deal. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. It is a unit that is still very powerful, so you might still play it anyway and just eat the cost and be sad about it, but it's a lot. Okay. Next, let's talk about things that probably... So from here on in, we're going to talk a little bit more about like the ramifications of all of these changes, and what you can do to like alleviate some of these changes, what you can do to like look at other things that are very good. First one, things that probably should have been nerfed but weren't. Kazarkin. This unit is still really good. You did not have to put it in a transport. It was just better in a transport. Now the question is, it was a 175 point package. Now it's a 185 point package. Is it still worth it? Maybe. It's still going to be something where you will have a lot of reach on the board, and if that's a style that you were looking to play beforehand, you can still do it. This unit is still very powerful. It still trades very well. It's still a good reinforcements target. Has grenades. It trades up efficiently. The other one, the Ogryn Bodyguard. This unit was right underneath the surface. It was seeing like some sporadic play, simply because it was just really tanky. Like, this unit is super, super annoying. It makes a command squad toughness 6, and I was expecting the Ogryn Bodyguard to go up. I think one of the major things that you should be looking to do is, if you were playing 20 bricks of Krieg before, you should now consider playing Ogryn Bodyguards with command squads. Probably Cadians, but Catachan are good as well, because it'll save you 30 points, and it's not quite as tanky as the Death Corps of Krieg bricks were. However, it is very nearly as annoying, and it's annoying in different ways because it's toughness 6, and different units won't be able to do anything about it. The Rogaldorn Commander. This is... I'm honestly kind of shocked that this unit did not go up. At 265, it's pushing out a lot of other competition. Like the Leman Russ Commander should not really be looked at, while the Rogaldorn Commander is still 265. This is, you would see at least one in almost every guard list. I'm gonna hazard a guess that it's actually, there are on average more than one Rogaldorn Commanders in every guard list over the past data slate since the Codex came out. This is good. Now that the Luminar's Battle Tank got nerfed as well, the Rogaldorn Commander is even more interesting because it was already like reasonably close in, point per output, right? And now that the Luminar's went up, it's interesting. The Luminar's Vanquisher is the other one. This was one that a lot of people were... Like, a lot of people are a little bit surprised, but the Luminar's Vanquisher is something that competitive players have been playing for a while. It's not new. Ever since the Codex came out, the Vanquisher has been very interesting because it is just the cheap tank. And as we slowly lose points, we start looking at more of these budget options. And the Vanquisher is really good for two reasons. The first one is that it is cheap, right? It is just the cheapest Laban Rust. Toughness 11, 2-up save with 13 wounds is very difficult for a lot of armies to punch through. And it works really well in a meta that has a lot of big monsters and vehicles. It will probably be very good as well in the Death Guard meta, and just being able to outshoot our opponent's vehicles is a really big deal. So I'm a little bit surprised that this one got changed. I would not be surprised if you started seeing more and more triple Vanquisher lists coming out. So like 2 Rogaldorn Commanders and like 3 Vanquishers. I will be very unsurprised if that became a staple of competitive play. Okay, things that probably should have been buffed but weren't. There are plenty of things that I could have put on this list. A lot of our indirect could have been on here for sure, but I'm not interested in those personally. Let's talk about the ones that really should have been changed. Lord Marshal Dreer. This guy is just so expensive for what he does. Like, when he's leading a unit of 10 Death Riders, I want to say like their average dev wound output was like 8. And then if you were into like infantry, it went up to like 9 or 10. So like, you could take this. It was 240 points before. Now it's 220 for that 10-man unit. I mean, that will reliably kill 5 Space Marines, but that's over 200 points that we're spending to kill 5 Space Marines. We can do that way cheaper with a lot of other units. So the fact that this guy didn't go down, still probably not worth playing in your competitive lists. But, he's cool. So, he's there. Tempestuous Scions. I was not super surprised that the 10-mans did not see a points drop, but I was a little bit surprised to see that the 5-man units also did not see a points drop. Not much to say about this one. They're still paying for the cinch of Bridgehead, but it does hurt the fact that we still do not have any cheap Deep Strike available to us. The 70 points is the cheapest that we can pay for Deep Strike, I think. There might be something in Agents that's not really worth looking at, but anyway, 70 points for Deep Strike is a lot. Okay, the Leman Russ Commander, another one that I was surprised, with the Rogaldorn Commander still being at 265 and the Leman Russ Commander still being at 235, a unit that's still just not really worth looking at, because it's just, there are better choices for not a whole lot more. So a little bit surprised that these didn't get any changes. Let's talk about our next category, things that are interesting because their direct competition got nerfed. Now, these are obviously units that did not receive changes in the most recent data slate. They did not go up in points, they did not go down in points. However, they were in classes that were changed because of other things. The Luminar's Battle Tank is a major part of a lot of competitive lists for the past couple of months. And it did have competitors that were hovering like right beneath the surface as things that might be good. So I know for a long time, I've been pretty down on the Luminar's Executioner. However, I'm not saying I'm pro-Executioner yet, but it is interesting. It is way more interesting now because the Luminar's Battle Tank went up. When it was only a 5-point difference, you would never take the Executioner while the Luminar's Battle Tank was sitting right there. But for 15 points, it's at the very least, if you need to find some points, this is a points change that is worth looking at if you're just trying to find like 15 points. If I had one battle or two battle tanks and I need to find 15 points, one of them becomes an executioner right away. This is a tank that is now almost as good and significantly cheaper. Hydra is another one that is very interesting. So this is one that we recently saw some success with from Lucas Stern, and I will be doing a interview with him on Thursday, which means it might go out Thursday, might go out Friday. But the Hydra is a unit that was seeing some play as just a relatively cheap hull, and as all of our hulls get more expensive, the fact that it is still 95 points makes it interesting, especially in the current meta, where we are expecting to see more flying infantry, flying vehicles, flying infantry from Blood Angels and Necrons possibly, and also flying vehicles in Death Guard. So Blood Angels, Necrons, Death Guard, and I think there's some fly in Thousand Suns, but I would need to double check on that one. Not 100% sure. Chimera. The Chimera was already seeing a little bit of scattered play as well during the last couple of months, and now that the Torox went up, the fact that the Chimera brings guns is a big deal. So this one's going to depend mostly on like what terrain you're playing on, and like not just like WTC versus like GW, but like specifically what layouts you're expecting to play on. Because if that 10 inches or maybe 13 inches of the Chimera with move is enough to get your infantry from point A to point B, Chimera is suddenly way more interesting because it actually does something other than just move you from point A to point B. If that range is not enough and you need the 12 or 15 inches of the Torox, you're still going to play the Torox. But the Chimera is interesting for that regard. Okay, the Rogaldorn Battle Tank. This is another one that is in the class of the Leonrose Battle Tank got worse, so everything else around it is now more interesting. Rogaldorn Battle Tank at 240, still pretty good. Yeah, I don't really have more to say about that one. It's the same thing as Executioner. It's the same thing as the Hydra. As our other tanks go up, things that did not go up become interesting. Okay. Let's talk about some of the actual shakeouts from the list that we saw and what were actually being played. So this is kind of the list in a lot of ways that got targeted. So this was played by Nassim Fouchain, and very similar list was played by Gustavo de Sousa. We also saw this list being played by Ben Jurek. Both Nassim and Ben Jurek played it at Battle for Salvation, and Gustavo played it at, I think it was Sheffield Super Major, and a very similar list was played by Nassim at whatever GT he went to. I forgot. But as you can see, this list went up 90 points, and this was the list most specifically targeted by these changes. Ursa Creed went up 20, the 30 points of Krieg, 20 points of Toroxes, and 20 points of Luminous Battle Tank. Now, this sucks, right? This is a little bit more... Oh, this list didn't have Gaunt's Ghosts. Go back. Spoilers. Pen. Pretend I didn't write that. Okay. I don't edit these, so we just go right on in. But this went up. Like, this just kind of sucks, right? It just makes the list worse overall. We're going to have to give up something. Immediate things to kind of think about. The first thing is maybe second Hellhound. I know Nassim was saying probably the Exterminator goes before the Hellhound, but either way, this is one of those things where you're probably going to have to give up one of your vehicles in order to, if you just want to run like exactly this list, you still can, right? Like, if you cross this out, and then you have like 70 points, like you can put in, I don't know, another unit of Catachan, Scout Sentinel, something in that vein. So you can still run this list. Like, this list, even minus one of these vehicles, is still going to be a good list. It just might not be a GT winning list. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at a list that basically didn't change. So Lucas Stern, he brought a combined arms list, and as you can see, it's got 3 Hydras here. They were already seeing a little bit of play. So the only changes were the 2 Luminous Battle Tanks, which went up a total of 20 points, but he also had a unit of Aquilons. I told you they were seeing some scatter play, so it went down 10 points. So overall, it only went up 10 points overall. And, I mean, we were talking about it before. If you wanted to run this exact list, well, first off, I think this should probably go, but if you just took one of these and turned it into an Executioner, like, cool. The list basically didn't change. It's still the same thing. Realistically, I think this should have become a Lemnos battle tank anyway, but, you know, is what it is. Okay, next, let's take a look at a couple other lists that were kind of caught in the crossfire. So this is David Gaylord's Mech Assault list. I think he took this to Dark Sphere and one other GT that he went to recently. Ursa Creed up 20, and he was only taking one Torox, which is surprising. And Mech Assault, a lot of people were running more Toroxes than that. But for 30 points, right, like, this is, like, maybe you take out Sacred Unguents. Maybe, like, maybe these two Chimeras become two Toroxes. So now you have three Toroxes. Like, this list is still mostly intact. And one more to show you guys. This is Brandon Kading's hammer list. He took this to a GT in Vancouver, Canada, fairly recently. And the only thing that changed, he was running 4 Toroxes for 40 points. That went up. And that is like, you know, you get rid of 1 Engineers. Right? Like, maybe this package of Engineers becomes, instead of 3 units of 5 Engineers, it becomes 2 units of Krieg Flamers. You know, the point is, like, there are changes that you could make. Like, all of our lists that we were already running are mostly intact. Like, we can still do most of the same things. So in terms of, like, the actual power level that we had changed in this data slate, it was not that much. We're basically the same overall. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about other things that changed around us next. So we have Nekron buffs. I do not understand this at all. Nekron buffs went, like, they became better. The Wraiths got buffed. Also, the character, I can't remember if it's the Plasmancer or the Technomancer, whichever one it is that you would always put with the race. It's 15 points cheaper per Wraith brick now. I don't know why. They were already seeing play. Necrons were already, like, somewhere in this, like, rank 6 through 10 best factions in the game. Necrons were already good. They got better. Blood Angels got so much better. I don't know why. Yeah, I really don't know why. Like, this army was fine. It definitely did not need to get 100 extra points worth of stuff. One of my friends showed me a list, and he was just like, yeah, I can just throw an extra unit of Sanguinary Guard in. That's really cool. If you want more info on this, I'm not the person to talk about it. Go talk to Blood Angel Commander, BA Commander. I might put it in the description. Otherwise, he does a lot of good stuff. Some small sisters buffs, and they also got, like, a couple of rules changes to, I think it was Champions of Faith. Admech buffs. The robots, the Castellan robots and Cybernetica cohort, I think it's called. The one that made it used to give, like, your Castellan robots like access to your army roll. Now they just have the army roll all the time, and they get, I think it's +2 move, which is really good. This is a really big change to the unit, so just keep an eye out. Castellan robots were already okay in Halo Screed. They might be really good in Cybernetica. Tau changes. Really big change, actually. So instead of 1-to-1 marking, you need one guide to get one guiding unit to get one, like, +1 ballistic skill unit. Now you just need one guiding unit, points at something, and that your entire army can shoot at that thing, which is kind of how it's worked in the past. So I'm a little bit surprised it wasn't like this to begin with. But stealth suits now give reroll 1s to hit and wound. Hit and wound. So overall, they all give, like, mini Oath of Moment, which is pretty cool. They did go up in points to compensate, so we'll see exactly, like, how much all of this happens. If you want more on this, check out Pure Tide Program and Tau Tactics. They both have good channels. Cool. Other changes that have happened. Inari got slapped. This was an army that really needed this change faster. Inari was one of the most miserable armies to play against, and I say this when we had a good matchup into Inari. Like, I only played it 3 times, I think, or 3 times, like, in bracket, and I won all 3 of them, or at least they were all singles wins. But but lethal intent is nowhere near as strong, and aria points also went up, like the Incarn and Ivrain went up. So this is a lot worse. Emperor's Children got some nerfs as well. Everything that you thought was good, so the Winged Demon Prince, Noise Marines, and what was the third good thing? I don't remember what the third good thing was, but the three good things went up. So like this army is just worse, but they'll probably like they probably are no longer A tier. They're probably down in B tier. Orcs nerfs. Oh my god, did orcs get nerfed? Basically everything that you would see in a tactical list, like tactical list went up like 100 or plus points on average, because you lost like 30 points on the tank bustas, you lost like 10 on the flash gets, so that's like 40, and then you lost like 50 points on the trucks, and so like tactical just lost like 100 plus points of stuff, which is a really big deal. Cool. Ultramarines nerfs. This is mostly not points. Their points actually went down overall, but a couple of changes. One, not Azrael. Marnius Calgar only gets his bonus CP if he is your warlord, and Gilliman is not one free strat per turn. It's now one free strat per battle round. That has been standardized across the game. As far as I know, there might be some exception somewhere that still exists, but it hurts their CP economy a lot. If you're trying to run the exact same list, you're going to get 10 less CP functionally with these changes than you would before. And if you drop either Gilliman or Calgar, it's only a 5 CP loss, but then you also have to fill the points with something else. So Ultramarines did take a big nerf. Okay. New detachments come out. The Tyranny detachment looks pretty cool. 6-inch deep strike and charge is always good. You're going to have to start looking out for the big worms. We'll react to this as it does. Like, we are pretty good at screening these kind of things anyway, so we'll see. Dark Angel's detachment looks really good. -1 to wound against Deathwing Knights, which are toughness 5 against anything that is stronger than their toughness. So, you know, your Plasma, your Melta, your Battle Cannons are all now going to be -1 to wound. That is very powerful, also with access to double oaths. I'm expecting that we'll probably also see some changes to this one in the near future. I really hope that we will not see a ton of... I really hope this doesn't take over the meta. It is potentially really, really good, but I'm not a Dark Angels player, so I'll talk to Clifton and see what he says about it. CS7 detachment looks okay. It's probably still worse than Bile and Raiders, but it's another tool to deliver Accursed Cultists, so, you know, there's only so bad it can be when you give them Scout 6 and access to +1 AP. The problem is only one of them gets Scout 6, so, you know, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so overall, where do we land? What are my overall thoughts on this data slate? One, this data slate is probably, I think we are firmly, like, there was a long time where Guard was pretty arguably a top 5 faction, but you needed to be really good at the game. It rewarded fundamentals really, really heavily. Guard still rewards being a fundamentally good Warhammer player a lot. That's just a fact. However, it does not reward it to the same degree. And I think the biggest thing about this is Guard players should be ready to not be like a really good faction anymore. We are probably a middle of the tier faction at this point. We're probably going to lose a couple of points of win rate. For most of the recent data slates, we've been somewhere in like the 45 to 48, so like on the lower end of the balance window that Games Workshop talks about. However, one of the bigger problems that we have is that a lot of the things that are coming out and a lot of the things that are like good right now are things that we're already kind of having a bit of trouble into. Actually, I want to take a look at something. In show. We don't need that. I'm going to pull up something. And this is how you know this is completely unedited all the time. So this is, if you don't know about this, I keep data on every Guard player that goes X and 1 or better at a GT, singles GTs only. Sorry, teams players. But as you can kind of see overall, there are some things over the last data slate that we have had some struggles into. Firstly, Blood Angels, Death Guard, Um, Tyranids, Orcs got nerfed, and then like Chaos Demons, right? Like, and then let's also throw in Thousand Suns. What's the other one? Emperor's Children we've been good into, right? Like, there's a bit of an issue here in that Death Guard is one that we're already seeing a lot. The average player is already struggling in this matchup quite a bit. Um, our best players were able to deal with it, but like this was mostly Index Death Guard, and Codex Death Guard is better. So we should expect this number to get worse. And they're going to be one of the best armies. Thousand Suns, I haven't been able to play against the Codex yet, but every other content creator I've talked to or heard talk about it says Thousand Suns are absolutely crazy. So we should expect a lot more Thousand Suns, and we should expect to really need to find answers to them. Blood Angels. A lot of this comes from when it was Bloodless Angels, when they got +1 to wound on all their stuff, but they just got an extra 100 points of stuff, and they move 12 fly with a lot of their infantry. So this is something where we're going to have to be very careful about playing up against Blood Angels, because a lot of our traditional ways that we try and screen things don't work. So my general expectation is that Blood Angels, Death Guard, Thousand Suns, maybe Dark Angels, depending on how strong that actually ends up being, are going to kind of be the meta for a little while. And they are things that we kind of like, they're not the easiest matchups for us overall. So I'm really worried that even though we'll have a decent matchup against most of the field, we will have losing matchups into a lot of the S tier armies. A lot of the things that are probably going to be the best armies in the game, we already have like tougher matchups into. So that's kind of why I'm expecting that we'll probably end up being like a B tier faction for this data slate, and we'll see how that ends up going. With all that said, though, yeah, there we go. We're gonna pull this back up as we end out. Um, these are just thoughts of mine. They are informed by talking to other very strong players, but of course, I don't know everything. Nobody knows exactly how this is going to go. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I will go ahead and I will have a stream later this evening in a couple of hours. So if you want to watch me play Lucas Stern's Hydra list, that'll be a thing. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys all next time. Bye bye.